My name is Emma Gonzalez. I'm 28 years old, and if you'd asked me a year ago what the most important thing in the world was, I wouldn't have even had to think about it. It was family. It was this unshakable foundation I'd built my entire life upon. It was the scent of café con leche in my abuela's kitchen in Little Havana, the sound of my cousins laughing in the backyard during a hurricane party, the feeling of knowing that no matter what, we had each other. It was a truth as solid and real as the Miami sun, and the absolute center of that universe for me was my tia Lucia. My life now is different. I live in a Wynwood loft, all exposed brick and massive windows that flood the space with light. I have a decent job as a coordinator for a small arts nonprofit. It's a world away from the tight-knit, sometimes chaotic, but always warm streets of my childhood. But you never really leave that behind. It's in your bones. I learned the meaning of resilience there, of community. I remember one hurricane, Hurricane Ramon, we lost power for a week. But we didn't lose each other. The whole street pooled our food, our generators. My tia Lucia was everywhere, a whirlwind of energy, checking on the elderly, organizing the distribution of supplies, her voice a constant, reassuring melody over the howling wind. She was my hero. She was everyone's hero. So when she founded the Ángel de la Comunidad Foundation after another bad storm, it felt like a natural extension of who she was. It was her life's work, focused on disaster preparedness and relief for our communities, the ones that always got hit the hardest and recovered the slowest. And I was so proud. Then came the 2025 climate funding cuts. It was a gut punch. The very programs that kept people safe, that helped them rebuild, were being slashed. Tia Lucia's foundation was on the brink. I remember her coming over to my loft, her face drawn with a stress I'd never seen in her before. "Emma, mi niña," she'd said, her voice trembling just a little. "I don't know how we're going to keep the doors open. We have families depending on us." I felt a surge of that old Little Havana solidarity. I wasn't a billionaire, but I had a little power, a little influence. At my job, I managed a modest grant fund for community initiatives. It wasn't huge, but it was something. I fought for her. I spent late nights crafting the perfect proposal, pulling together data, writing impassioned emails to my board. I secured a $30,000 grant for Ángel de la Comunidad. It was the single largest allocation from that fund that year, but that was just the start. I was family. This wasn't just a professional transaction. Her foundation needed a proper, consistent office space. So I covered the $1,900 a month lease on a small unit in a decent location, using a chunk of my own savings. They needed professional help to run their big annual fundraiser, so I paid $5,000 for an event planner. I was there on weekends, painting walls, building websites, stuffing envelopes. I even dipped into my personal account for $300 here, $200 there for basic supplies. Paper, ink, printer, toner. Things a functioning charity shouldn't have to beg for. The annual gala was her crown jewel. It's where she networked, where she secured the big donations for the year. I wanted it to be perfect for her. I contributed another $3,000 of my own money to secure high-quality auction items, a weekend getaway, a signed jersey from a local sports star. I was all in. In total, between the grant and my personal contributions, I had directed over $36,000 into her foundation. I didn't keep a tally. That felt crass. We were family. We were building something together. I was so immersed in the work, so proud of what we were accomplishing, that the invitation for the gala felt like a mere formality. I was already planning what to wear. But as the date drew closer, my inbox remained empty. I saw the event pop up on Facebook. The Ángel de la Comunidad Annual Gala, an evening honoring our true champions. The venue was stunning, a waterfront hotel I could never afford on my own. A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Maybe it got lost in the post? I called her. "Tia," I said, my voice deliberately light. "I think my invite for the gala got lost. The mail has been terrible lately." The silence on the other end was deafening. It stretched for a beat too long. "Oh, mi amor," she finally said, and her tone had changed. It was slick, polished, a tone I'd heard her use with wealthy donors, but never with me. This year, the planning committee has decided to make it a much more exclusive affair. We're focusing on our major benefactors, our select philanthropists. It's a strategic decision, you understand? We have to cultivate the big fish. I felt the floor drop away from me. Select philanthropists, major benefactors. The words were like little daggers. I was standing in the loft I'd worked so hard for, surrounded by the art and the light, and I felt like that little girl in Little Havana again, being told she didn't belong. Right? I managed to whisper. The big fish. I hung up the phone and sat there for a long time, just staring at the wall. The betrayal was a physical ache. It wasn't that I wanted public recognition. It was that I had been so thoroughly, so deliberately erased. My $36,000, my sleepless nights, my skipped trips to Art Basel with my friends, none of it mattered. I was family, and in her new, polished world, family was apparently an embarrassment. We were the help. The night of the gala, I made the mistake of scrolling through the live posts. There she was, my Tia Lucia, in a breathtaking, brand new designer gown I knew the foundation couldn't afford. Her arm linked with a local property developer known for a single, large, tax-deductible donation. She was beaming. The caption read, "Honoring the boundless generosity of our true champions." I closed the app, my hands shaking. I felt sick. The next morning, with a clarity that was as cold as it was painful, I began the process of halting everything. I called my board and explained, with a professionalism that belied the hurricane of emotion inside me, that the grant was being pulled due to irreconcilable differences in operational transparency. I canceled the checks for the office lease. I informed the event planner her services were no longer required. The silence this time was from my end. Lucia's response was not a phone call asking what was wrong. It was not a concerned visit. It was a declaration of war. The whispers started first. A cousin would call, their voice laced with concern. Emma, está bien? Tia Lucia said there might be questions about how you handled that grant money. Then it got darker. The word embezzlement was murmured at family gatherings. She insinuated to others that I was being audited, that my career was in jeopardy. She was using the one thing that could truly destroy me, my reputation, and she was doing it to cover her own tracks. But she had made a critical error. She assumed I was still the naive niece who would crumble under family pressure. She didn't account for the professional I had become. I didn't get angry. I got a lawyer. I assembled every single document, every bank transfer, every signed agreement, every invoice I had ever paid on her behalf. I commissioned an independent third-party audit of my handling of the grant funds. The report came back crystal clear. Every penny was accounted for, and it highlighted in stark detail the severe financial mismanagement within her own foundation. The battle moved from family dinners to Miami-Dade court. It was ugly. She even resorted to calling in anonymous wellness checks to my home, a pathetic attempt to paint me as emotionally unstable. But the truth was out. The veneer of the community saint was cracking, and the desperate, calculating woman beneath was exposed for all to see. In the end, I was exonerated. Completely. But I had lost my aunt. I had lost a part of my family. The foundation, Ángel de la Comunidad, collapsed under the weight of its own scandals. For weeks, I drifted through my loft, feeling hollowed out. The betrayal was a poison. But then something began to stir in me. That $36,000 worth of pain and lessons, it couldn't be for nothing. The fire I'd seen in her during Hurricane Ramon, the real fire of community aid, that hadn't been a lie. She had just lost her way. I wouldn't. I took my pain and I channeled it. I started a new group. No fancy name, no gala, no select philanthropists. We're just the Calle Resistencia Collective. It's grassroots, it's transparent, and it's powered by the very people it serves. We use social media to coordinate. We hold meetings in community centers and backyards, and every penny is accounted for in public ledgers. We're doing the work she originally set out to do, the real work, without the ego and the designer gowns. Tia Lucia wanted to honor the true champions at her gala. She just never understood what one looked like. She was so busy looking up at the wealthy donors in their finery that she failed to see the real champion standing right beside her all along, ready to move mountains for her. She had to erase me to see them. And in doing so, she didn't destroy me. She freed me. She showed me that the true strength of a community isn't in its single biggest donor, but in the collective power of all its people, looking out for one another, just like we did in Little Havana. And that's a foundation that no hurricane and no betrayal can ever wash away.